how I am, this is what I mean by, I feel like in these arguments, I'm caught in this no man's land between spontaneity and dictatorship. Like either assuming on the one hand that people today are spontaneously able to rule themselves without capitalist control, without state control, without supervisors and managers, like Lenin said. Either this, what I agree, I think, is a naive position of spontaneity, or the only other alternative is a kind of dictatorship. People need to be transformed, and in order to do that, they need to be commanded in order to change them. So I'm saying, what is it that lies between these two? In other words, how can we become a new people by ourselves? What means do we have for collective self-transformation that can lead toward our being able to rule ourselves? And it's there in that gap that I think of love. I'm thinking of love, so this is all just trying to situate it for you, at least where I'm coming from, which is that love could be a process or even a field of training for constructing a democratic society. So that's what I mean in a way by love as a political concept. So there are two other introductory things I need to say about why love. One, and they're really about why I'm going to love rather than other concepts. Yeah, many friends tell me, friends of a certain sort say, Mike, why don't you talk about solidarity, not about love? Solidarity is a good old commie concept. Why can't we just talk about that? And it seems to me that what love does rather than solidarity is that love extends beyond our standard conceptions of rationality, beyond the rational calculus of interests. That's essentially the way I understand solidarity. I'm sure, of course, all these terms you could use differently. But I understand solidarity as essentially a calculation of interests in which we aid each other or unite with each other because of mutual interests. It seems to me that love, on the contrary, develops a different relationship between reason and the passions, or a different kind of rationality. It doesn't seem to me that love as a political concept especially is strictly a passion. It's rather a notion of reason that isn't excluded from the passions. The second one is people say, why don't you talk I often find myself in this dilemma with concepts that no longer mean what I think they should mean. And so you either have to abandon the concept. For instance, we were talking in the seminar some about democracy in this respect. Anyone who talks about democracy today, it's hard not to have in your listener's ear ringing George Bush talking in his State of the Union address and thinking about democracy as whatever the US military is doing in Iraq, rather than what we would mean, what one could mean by democracy. And so either you abandon the concept and start name it something else, which I know you all are very good at working with invention of new terminology, but it irritates a lot of people, I have to say, inventing new terms, I've found out from experience. And, or the alternative is to insist on the concept and struggle over the concept in order partly to make good on the heritage the concept itself has. That's true for me, quite importantly, with the term democracy, and I think you can see also with the concept of love. So therefore, when Lacan says there is no such thing as a sexual relationship, this was one of the mysterious phrases for me, and that love is impossible, he means that it's impossible to destroy difference, that is, difference as such. And so that seems to me, let's see, I wouldn't put it the way where he says love is impossible. I would say that we need to struggle against a notion of love that conceives eros as the merging into unity, the way Freud does. I would translate it to say that we need to rather construct a love that preserves difference and, in fact, works with differences, that even multiplies differences. The problem for me, of course, as I said earlier, is that Lacan is here only thinking about sexual difference. And I think that's true and important about sexual difference, but I would assume that one could extend it to other kinds of difference, other forms of difference. This would be an argument also against tolerance. I was thinking as an example here could be Pasolini's movie called Comizi d'amore, which in English is called Love Meetings, very strange movie that Pasolini made where he goes around sort of documentary style and talks about love to people throughout Italy. And what I find is interesting is that Foucault wrote a little like review of it in Le Monde when it was projected in Paris, called the Gray Mornings of Tolerance. And he sees it as an argument against indifference to sexuality. That's what he thinks Pasolini is doing, is recognizing the differences of sexuality and how tolerance poses sexuality from the lens of indifference and therefore destroys the differences of sexuality. So that I think, again, or that I'm using as a negative example in a way, of this third point, which is that love must be based on differences, or love as an experimenting with differences. What Deleuze and Guattari would say is that love, this is something else we talked about in the last couple of days, is love involves the multiplicity of multiplicity